I'll be explaining you the concept of option explicit now. I told you that in Vbscripting, if you write a equals to 100 and on the next line I can write message box A. I don't need to declare A first, I can just initialize it on the fly. But if in Vbscripting we write option explicit on the top, and if you run the code, then you will get an error that A is undefined. So when you are using option explicit, it becomes mandatory for you to define the variables. Defining the variable means that you will have to use something like this, dim A. So when I write dim A, that means I need to define A. I am defining A over here, and when you run this now, this will run fine. Okay, this will run perfectly fine. And on the next line, I can also write A equals to in the world of QTP. So similarly, let me see. So, but if you are using option explicit, you need to use the dim statement in order to define your variables. Okay, so option explicit makes it mandatory to define the variables. Now, when you run this will run fine, just like any other VB program, 100 and in the world of QTP. Fine. So this is what option explicit is. Alright. Now in this, so I'll be talking about if statements now. Like you must have studied about if statements earlier as well. I'll just give you a refresher, and I'll also talk in depth about them if you have not studied them. Like if I write message box 3 greater than 2 and I run it from line number 10, what will this print? This will print true. True and false are the Boolean types. Okay, true and false are the Boolean types. It prints true because it is the truth that 3 is greater than 2. Similarly, if I write 3 less than 2 and I run the code, it will print false. That is, it's not the right thing. 3 is not less than 2. Right? So this is the Boolean type variable. If I write x equals to true, then x becomes a Boolean. Boolean can only accept true or false values. Okay, now in this, what we can do is, I can write an if statement based on these true or false values. For example, you write if and give a space, then the complete syntax of if will come up in VB. I'll again tell you, you just write if and give a space. If, then the condition, and then statement and end if. That is, I can write if true, then message box success. So instead of this true, we generally write the conditions. So if you run this from line number 14, the shortcut to run from a line is control F5. If I hit control F5 of my keyboard, this provided the cursor is on that particular line from which you want to run it. If I hit control F5, then it will start executing from a particular line. When I click OK, this prints success. Fine, this prints success. So instead of printing true or hard coding true over here, I can give some condition. I can write A equals to hello and B equals to hello. I can give the condition like if A is equal to B, then print success. Right? So this condition will evaluate to true or false. Okay, A equals to B is true over here. So if it evaluates to true, then only the control will go inside the if statement. If it does not evaluate to true, then the control will not go inside the if statement. So I can just run it from line number 15 again. See, this prints success, right? Suppose if A is not equal to B, then I can give the else statement. The else has to be before end if. Alright, I can write message box fail, and I can just write hello 1 over here. Now A is not equal to B out here. So when I run from line number 15, I run this from line number 15, I get the output. Sorry, I ran it from the first line. Hold on. Okay, I accidentally ran it from the first line. From 15th line, control F5 and this will print fail. That is, if A is not equal to B. So this is how you can use if-else statements in VB. I could have also taken two numbers. For example, x equals to 100 and y equals to 200, and I can give the condition like if x is greater than y, then print x is greatest. Okay, I can modify this code like this, and along with that I can print the value of x. Else I can give else if statement in you write it like this: else if is the command if you want to give another condition. Else if x is less than y, then message box y is greatest. Oops. Right? And the value of y. Else if x is also not greater than y, y is also not greater than x is also not greater than y, and y is also not greater than x, then both are equal. So when you run this from line number 18, see, it prints y is the greatest, and if I put 200 over here, if I make x and y greatest, then run it from line number 18, see, it's again printing both are equal, right? So this is giving us the right output. Now suppose if there are three numbers, x equals to 100, y equals to 200, and z equals to 50. I need to find the greatest number among these three numbers. Fine. So what we do is we write something like this: if x is greater than y, okay, along with this, and x is greater than z, that is x is greater than y as well as z, then message box x is the greatest one. Now be careful, people tend to make a mistake in if statements. There should be a space between then and the condition. If I don't give this space, I am talking about this space over here. If I don't give the space, then the program will throw an error. Again, if I don't give the space here, again the program will give an error. You have to give a space between if and then, like the condition should be surrounded with a space. And I have given an AND clause in between. That is, it will make sure that the left hand side and right hand side both evaluate to true. True ANDed with true will always be true. Okay. Similarly, you can use OR as well. So these are Boolean operators. And or XOR. You must have studied this sometime in your engineering or sometime in your work as well. That is, AND means both the conditions should be evaluated to true. Similarly, OR is also there. That is, either of left hand side, either of these conditions can evaluate to true or true. Then the complete condition will be true. If both of them are false, then only the false is evaluated. Right? So if x is greater than y and x is greater than z, then do this. Else if there is no space between else if. Please note that there is no space between else if. Else if, that means x is not the greatest one. Somebody from y and z are greatest. Else if y is greater than z, then message box. Simply I'll just print this y is greatest and the value of y. Else simply z is the greatest one. And the value of z, right? So when you run it from the line number 30 and you see the output, it prints y is the greatest one, which is 200 obviously, right? So this is how spelling mistake there. So this is how you can use the statements, if statements, if else, the Boolean operators, the greater than, less than, right? There are various kinds of conditions, like I just talked about, equal to, greater than, equal to, right? This is the sign of greater than. So we have signs like this is the sign of greater than, less than, equal to. This is the sign of not equal to. Okay, this is the sign of greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. So all these are operators in VB language. Right? All these are operators in the VB language. So this is about if statements. You will require these statements at times while working with QTP, because at times you need to do some validations in your application, or you want to check for something, so you will definitely need this, right? So now the next thing is loops. Okay, I'll just save this program as VB1. I'll rather make a folder module 2 and inside it option explicit along with if statements. I'll store it. Right. So okay, now I will make a new test and I'll explain loops to you. Loops. What are loops? What are their practical implications? Where do we use? Okay, there are many types. There's a do while loop, for loop. But the most famous loop is a for loop. Okay, most famous is a for loop. Then there is a loop called while loop. Okay, for example, I declare a variable called I equals to 10. Okay, I can write a while loop. The syntax is you simply type while in the editor, give a space, and the complete syntax will come. Just like if statements, you write if and you give a space. Similarly for while loops, you just write while and then give a space and then specify your condition. that is a condition which evaluates to true or false. If I directly write true over here, then this while loop will never end. If I write while true, okay, and I write over here print I, and I run the program, this program will never stop. This will keep on printing I. See, this is looping continuously. There is a yellow arrow coming up in my editor. That arrow might not be coming in your editor. I'll stop this program first. That is the debug arrow. Okay, when we study about debug scripting, you will come to know what this debug array is, or what this debug arrow is, right? So I just this thing will never stop because the condition is always true. I can give the condition while I is less than 100. Print the value of I, and after that also increment the value of I by 1. So what will happen is that this while loop will run, it will print the value of I, increment the value of I, and then again check if the incremented value, the new value of I is less than 100 or not. So this will print the value of I from 10 to 99, because when it becomes 100, 100 is not less than 100 and it will come out of the while loop. So when you run this code, see, it prints the value of I, it keeps on incrementing the value, and it actually executed till 99, from 10 to 99. Okay, so similarly, there is a for loop. Right, there is a for loop just like a while loop. The problem is with while loop is that if I forget to give this incrementation, then this while loop will never end. It will keep on printing the value of I, because the value of I will always remain less than 100. Okay, but in for loop, you have to specify the initial and the final value in one go. I can declare a variable for x equals to 0, 2. I have to give the final value. The value of x will go from 0 to 100, and step 1. Step 1 means after every iteration of the for loop, increment the value of x by 1. For example, I write over here print value of x is ampersand x. Right? So step 1, what it does after the loop is over, it does the equivalent of I equals to I plus 1. So when you run this from line number 10, see, it prints the numbers from 1 to 99, or 1 to 100, sorry, x is going from 0 to 100. Similarly, if I give step 5, what will happen? The value of x will jump by 5, and when you run it from line number 10, this will keep on incrementing by 5, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, like this. Right? Okay, so this is pretty simple, right? Similarly, if I have to go back, for example, I need to print the values from 100 to 0, and I write step -1. So what will happen is the value of x will be decremented by 1 after every iteration. So when you run this from line number 10, you right click on line number 10, select the option run from step, and see that it's going in the backward direction. It's going in the backward direction. So step signifies the step by which the value of the variable x should change after every iteration. Okay, x signifies this. Similarly, if I have to write a for loop to print table of 7, I want to print the table of 7. then I can just write a for loop for I equals to 1 to 10, step 1. Okay, if I don't write step 1 over here, by default QTP takes the step as 1. Okay, so you have to write step 1 over here, and then you have to write print sorry. So I'll write, if I don't specify step 1, by default the step is 1. Okay, if you have to specify 2, 3, then you'll have to write this, otherwise you can omit writing the step 1 statement. Fine. If I write over here print 7 multiplied by I. So when you run this from line number 15, this will print the table of 7. Okay, and if you want to print a fancy result, then you can write 7 multiplied by I equals to, and you concatenate it with the result. Hope you understand what I am doing. This is the constant. I am concatenating it with the value of I equals to 7 cross I. So this will give me a very fancy result, that is, when I run this from step, it will print the table of 7 like this. Right? Similarly, if you want to print the tables from 1 to 10, okay, then you can write a for loop inside another for loop. I can enclose this loop with another loop like this for say table number equals to 1 to 10, right? I am not writing step 1 here, by default the step is 1. Okay, and I write printing table of ampersand table underscore number, and instead of hard coding 7, I will write table underscore number concatenated with the value of I, concatenated with the result equals to, and this is the result, table underscore number, right. So this is the statement. When table number is 1, the inner for loop will run for 10 times and multiply the table number with the value of I, 1 into 10, 1 into 1, 1 cross 2, 1 cross 3, 1 cross 4. When the table number becomes 2, it will multiply 2 cross 1, 2 cross 2, 2 cross 3. So for each value of the outer loop, the inner loop will run for 10 times. And the outer loop represents the table number. So this is how I end up printing the tables from 1 to 10. When I run this from line number 15, you see that it prints all the tables. So this kind of loop, okay, to table of 3, 4, 5, this kind of one loop inside another loop is used in frameworks. This type of loop will certainly be used in a framework. While making the hybrid framework or a data-driven framework, you have to use loops inside the loops. Alright, so now this is the table for 7, and after this I will say you can write a for loop, like you can debug the for loop. Okay, I'll just tell you how to debug the programs in QTP. It's very easy. It's not a rocket science. Okay, the first thing is that Microsoft script debugger should be installed on your machine. Okay, so for those of you like if you don't know what debugging is, okay, then debugging is running the script line by line so that you are able to control it and you are able to see what happens in real time when the script is running. What are the real time values for the variables, how these values are changing. You can see that. Okay. First thing is you should have Microsoft Script Debugger installed. If you don't have it installed, you go to all programs, go to your QTP and go to tools, and under tools you will find additional installation requirements, this thing. When you click it, you get a window like this. This window also came up at the last screen of installing QTP. This window was basically the last screen of installing QTP. If you have these three options, then it's fine. That means that your Microsoft Debugger is installed on the machine. Okay. If you have the fourth checkbox, that is install Microsoft Debugger, that will be the checkbox. You click that checkbox and unclick the rest of the checkbox. Okay. In case, I'll repeat, in case the script debugger is not installed, you will have a fourth checkbox, install Microsoft Debugger. Okay, click on that and unclick everything and click on run, the debugger will be installed. Okay, so you have to install the Microsoft Debugger first. Okay, then you need to slow down QTP, the execution speed. That is, I am talking about, if you go to tools options, under the run menu, you will have the fast selected. Fast execution in QTP never allows you to debug the script. You have to run it in normal execution and select a small time frame, delay each step execution, I'll write 10 milliseconds. That means that when QTP executes the script, okay, there will be a 10 milliseconds delay between every line. So this will help you to debug it. For debugging, you have two conditions. You have to install debugger and you have to run it in the normal mode. Okay, and just give small amount of delay. Alright. Now the third step is you need to put a breakpoint. Breakpoint is something where you expect your code to stop after executing. So in order to put a breakpoint, suppose I want to stop the execution on this line and I need to click in front of this line and bring this red dot. Okay, now I will be able to execute this script run line by line. If I right click on line number 12, select the option run from step, the script will stop on this line. You see the yellow line is cropping on this line. This yellow line will only be visible if you have Microsoft Script Debugger installed successfully on your machine. Okay, so now this code is stopped on this line and below you will have the Debug Viewer. This one. This is the Debug Viewer. It's got various tabs like watch, variables and commands. Okay, so we'll talk about them. We'll talk about the debugging scripts now. It will make your work very easy. Okay, now in order to execute this script line by line, you have to press F10. If I press F10 out here, you see line number 14 got executed. If you go to the variables tab, under the variables tab you will see the table number variable. Okay, and if you press F10 again, then in the print window, printing table of 1 will get printed. When I press F10 again, you will see the value of I also coming up. I is equal to 1 here. And if you press F10 again, you will see that in the print window it has printed 1 cross 1 equals to 1. So you can execute the script line by line, and along with it you can see the real-time values of your variables. which will be very helpful to you. Okay, you keep on pressing F10 and you see that the value of I is increasing. Look at the value of I in the debug viewer. You will see it increasing, and as soon as it becomes equals to 10, the inner loop gets over and the outer loop starts again. The value of table number becomes 2 and I again gets initialized to 1, C gets initialized to 1 and it again starts executing. Now at this point of time, I don't want to execute it line by line. Okay, I want to execute this as a normal program so that it should end. So I just press F5. If I hit F5, it will run like a normal program, see it's running, and it will end in some time, see it's over. Okay, so put a breakpoint, and F10 is for line by line execution and F5 is for run normally. F5 is also the shortcut to execute your script. Okay, run has the shortcut as F5. In under normal scenarios, if I just hit F5, I will be able to run the script. Similarly, while debugging also, if you hit F5, your script will start running normally. Alright, now about this debug viewer, if you are not able to see the debug viewer, one more thing, if I put the breakpoint, right click on line number 12, I select run from step, and if you are not able to see this debug viewer, you can go to view and enable the debug viewer from here. Okay, you can enable debug viewer from the view menu and that will help you. What about this watch? What about this command tab? Okay, I'll talk about it in coming lectures. I'll talk about it in the coming modules. For time being, just understand how to install the viewer, how to debug the program line by line, how to see the variable states. Okay, we'll talk about command and watch as we move on, step into, step out, all those things. We'll talk about it. Alright, so